We're ready.
Okay, Ms. Lane.
This is the meeting for the Mobile City Planning Commission for Thursday, February 3rd, 2021. General procedures for this remote meeting are as follows. I will announce an application for items where no one from the public is attending via Zoom. Staff will give an overview, including any comments received from the public. If a member of the public will attend, the staff will announce their attendance and admit them at this time. Once the parties have joined the meeting, if needed, I will state the commission's
He's
rules
looking at
regarding
mainly.
number of speakers as well as speaking time. Each application is limited to a maximum of 4 speakers in support and 4 people in opposition, limited to 5 minutes each. I will then announce the beginning of the public hearing. The applicant will present their case and up to 3 additional speakers if applicable. For each speaker, at the end of their presentation, I will ask if there are any questions from any commissioners. Once the commission concludes their questions of the speakers in support of an application, I'll then call for interested parties to speak. At the end of each speaker's presentation, I'll ask if there are any questions from the commission. The applicant will be given an opportunity to rebut in accordance with commission rules for 2 minutes. After the rebuttal, I will declare the public hearing closed and the commission will go into deliberation session. After the commission has rendered a decision, the applicant and concerned parties will leave the meeting or will be sent back to the waiting rooms.
Here.
Yes, Rich,
Here.
Don Hembry,
Here.
Jay Stubbs,
Here.
Art Blackwell. Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We'll move on to item number 1, 605 Texas Place. Ms. Pappas, I believe Mr. Pipes may be on the line.
Yes, ma'am. I just admitted Mr. Pipes into the meeting as well as Sharon Wright.
Hello, everybody.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pipes.
I would like to shorten everybody's day and say that the applicant is withdrawing this rezoning application.
Thank you. All right, do any commission members have any questions for Mr. Pipes? I guess that's not appropriate since he's withdrawing. Ms. Pappas, is Mr. Hill present?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we will move on to item number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question real quick, just out of curiosity, because just for future reference, I mean, this is the second time this property has come before us for rezoning. And I was just curious to know what was the reason for withdrawal?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. We had neighborhood opposition, and we were not able to secure the neighborhood support.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pipes, and thank you for having that neighborhood meeting. I understand it happened yesterday, and we appreciate your getting that put together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Since that application's been revoked, we don't have to vote on withdrawing that application. It's just withdrawn, right?
Correct.
So we will move on to number 2, which is 2508 Riverside Drive, Mosteller Park subdivision.
I'm admitting Jerry Bird into the meeting.
Okay.
And it continues to say he's joining.
Does his have the wrong date?
Oh, he's stuck between the waiting room and the meeting room.
Would you like for us to move to number 2 while we're, to number, oh, I think that's him.
Can you hear it?
Okay, what you need to do is redial back in. Just try redialing back in. Yeah, and you can try to do it in that way.
Okay, I think that was Miss Sessions. Yeah, I'm gonna unmute. Okay. Mr. Byrd is still stuck in.
Would you like for us to move to number 3 while we're working out the technical difficulties?
He's number 3 as well. So we can move on to number 4. I can say that I did speak to him yesterday, and I don't believe he had any issues or concerns with the recommendations, but let's wait. Let's go to the next one, which is item number 4, 350 St. Joseph.
Perfect. We're going to take item number 4, the Gateway subdivision. Is the applicant in the room, or are you admitting him?
I did have email with Roe yesterday, and there were no concerns with this staff recommendation.
Okay,
And one signed up in opposition.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. We are in agreement with staff recommendations and have no objections. And that is on item number 4, the Gateway subdivision.
Thank you, Ms. Pappas. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the staff? No? Okay. Then if somebody would like to make a motion on number 4, we can proceed.
I would
Margaret,
move
did you
that
say
we
there was
approve
there was no opposition or comments from the community?
That is correct.
And the applicant?
So I would move that we waive section VD9 of the subdivision regulations and approve the application subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion passes. Ms. Pappas, or can we go back to number 2? Do you have Mr. Byrd back on the line?
Hold on, I'm checking. No, I do not have him back on the line yet.
Then let's move to number 5.
Yes, and I think.
I am recused on number 5 and on number 6, so Ms. Denson's going to take over from here.
Okay, moving on to number 5, 3158 and 3160 Old Shell Road and 110, 116 Abram Street. I'd like to point out to the commission that there was a revision in the staff recommendations today and should be evident in the information Mr. Hoffman sent out this morning. Is the applicant going to be on the line, or?
Yes, ma'am. I have submitted William Lotta for the applicant, and then we have a concerned party, Patrick Crabtree, that I have admitted as well.
Okay.
William, are you on here?
Yes, I'm here. With the revisions that were sent out this morning, we have no objections.
So you're in agreement with all the staff recommendations?
Yes, ma'am.
Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Lotta? Okay. Ms. Pappas, do you want to have the other person?
Yes, it's Mr. Patrick Crabtree. Mr. Crabtree?
Yes, how are you doing? I'm the resident of 118 Abrams Street. One 118, 120, 124, and 122 has been in my family since my grandfather's grandmother purchased it way back when. Actually, 116 also belonged to my uncle at one time too. I know it was bought by Henry Dyson, and his daughter sold it recently, and it was zoned commercial. And here's my concern. I don't have a problem with anything being built there or whatever, but I have the largest piece of property that directly affects this. I have 150 feet bordering there, and from my fence line, from my border, my property line to my house is approximately 10 feet. So with what I'm hearing they're wanting to do, the reason why they purchased Patricia Jackson's house was they needed room for a parking lot. So my concern is there any buffer that's going to be between the businesses being built and my property? Because if you put a property in right up against my parking lot, right up against my property, it's going to directly affect me in many, many ways, noise, everything else. So when I'm not against progress, I'm not against anything being built there. I just want to make sure that whatever is built there, what kind of protections I will have as a homeowner, because I'm sick and tired, because across the street is the ice house that was owned by Brent. I forgot his last name, but it's an eyesore. It's right across the street from Phillips Preparatory School. It's the magnet school. I'm tired of our neighborhoods just being neglected, because how are we going to ever build up the neighborhood if you're going to constantly just destroy it with businesses and everything else, and there's nothing to actually encourage the neighborhood to grow as a neighborhood. And it's not feasible to go against Phillips Preparatory School and all to be a magnet school, because what are you doing? You're saying, you know, you're going to be across the street from just businesses. I mean, it's just, I just am concerned about all these things, because nobody has reached out to me to show me any plans, what's being built, how it's going to look. There's already a big blue metal building there. There's a eyesore. And I'm tired, and the property has not been maintained. So I'm just more concerned about how it's going to look and what's going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. Ms. Pappas, would you or like to respond to some of his questions, please?
Yes. The property, what is before the commission today is only a subdivision to consolidate the existing lots into one lot. The zoning of the property is B3, community business. It has been zoned B3 since October of 1968. So the zoning is already in place. There is a buffer requirement in the zoning ordinance, which requires a minimum of a 6-foot wooden privacy fence or a 10-foot planting strip. Most commercial property owners choose to provide the 6-foot wooden privacy fence. It tends to provide more buffer than the vegetative planting, and it's typically easier to maintain. Any structures to be built on the site would have to meet the setback requirements. The minimum setback requirement between commercial and residential is 10 feet. But again, for this particular application, it is strictly a subdivision to take all of these smaller lots and combine them into one large lot. The commercial zoning of the site is existing.
Margaret, we're going from, is it 4 lots? We're going from 4 to 1, is that correct?
It's actually multiple lots. There's at least, I believe, 4 legal lots of record and then a meets and bounds parcel. You can see the shadowing of the smaller lots, and it's consolidating all of those lots into this one lot that's roughly 240 feet along Old Shell, 346 along Abrams.
So as far as any plans for structures on this property right now, that's not what's before us today. This is strictly just a subdivision change. So if they have a plan to come back later and build something, if there's more than one structure, they're gonna have to have a PUD submitted.
That's correct. The only thing that would require any additional approval types is if they do a PUD, like you were saying, with multiple buildings and shared access.
But
Otherwise,
even with this subdivision change though, because it's you said it was a B1 rating?
B3,
B3. So even with that change, there's gonna be some fencing requirements, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Compliance with the zoning ordinance is required, but that will be through the building permit review process. No public hearings would be involved unless they propose something that did not comply with the zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Crabtree, did that help answer some of your concerns at this point?
So I guess specifically want to know, so from my property line, would they build a fence on my property line, and how far would it go back? So it wouldn't like a fence go directly up to the fence line on the side of my house. How far back would that fence go, and how far from my property line would the fence go? Would it be right on the property line?
Typically, it is right along the property line so that there's not a gap and creating maintenance issues. In terms of how it'll be, you'll have a 3-foot high fence going from the Abrams Street property line back for 25 feet. After 25 feet, at that 25-foot point, going back all along your side property line to the corner, it would have to be at least 6 feet tall.
I think that's answering my question, because that was my concern. So the parking lot, if they build a parking lot on the side of it would still have to be 6 feet from that fence? So it wouldn't be right up to it?
No, sir, the parking lot could be right up to the fence. The fence itself would have to be 6 feet high. Now, I cannot tell you that that's what they are doing. Here's their site, but they could have cars parked up to the fence as far as minimum compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Margaret, I have a question about the site. I noticed that there's I guess a dwelling that was a single family. So in order to get the subdivision